By Sunday morning, the healing woman could feel the weight of the previous day in her thighs and shoulders. It was the kind of soreness that lingered not as a complaint, but as a physical reminder of time well spent. She had kept up with her son through the preserve's hills, meadows, and marshes, and it had been worth every breathless moment. But today her body asked for something slower, something softer. Her tea steeped while the early sun streamed through the kitchen window, painting long beams across the floor. As she added a splash of honey, she glanced over at the table, where her camera sat waiting in its case. Her fingers itched for it, not to document movement or keep pace, but to pause, to focus, to capture the delicate details she often passed by when walking fast. Her son entered the kitchen already dressed, the hint of a grin curling at the corners of his mouth. He didn't ask where they were going. He had sensed the shift in mood the way only someone who understands you without needing explanation can. Instead, he pulled on his sneakers, tucked a lightweight hoodie under his arm, and slipped a small camera into his jacket pocket. They said little on the drive. They didn't need to. The silence between them had always been comfortable, filled not with avoidance but with understanding. The healing woman drove with the windows cracked, letting the scent of pine and freshly cut grass drift into the car. As they pulled into the shaded parking area of the preserve, a familiar calm settled over her. The sun was higher now, casting a warm wash over the tree line. Birdsong filled the air, layered like notes in a song without structure. The path ahead shimmered in places where dew still clung to tall grass, and the wild stillness of the preserve beckoned like an old friend. She adjusted the strap on her camera bag and looked to her son. "Let's take the hill trail," she said. He nodded and fell in step beside her. They started slowly, moving through the stretch of flatland near the meadow, letting their legs warm up. The tall grasses waved gently in the breeze, and early summer flowers, purple asters, coreopsis, wild bergamot, nodded as they passed. Butterflies floated lazily over blooms, and the hum of bees offered a steady rhythm beneath the breeze. They stopped briefly under the wide limbs of their usual oak tree, taking a few sips of water, but didn't linger. From there they entered the wooded hills, a quiet section of the preserve that felt somehow more ancient, more untouched. Sunlight spilled through the canopy in long angled lines, catching floating pollen and suspended dust, making the air sparkle. The ground was soft and rich, blanketed in last autumn's leaves and scattered with pine cones and brittle twigs. Her son walked just ahead, slowing his pace to match hers. Occasionally, he'd snap a picture of the way a vine curled around a tree trunk or the delicate cap of a mushroom peeking from under moss. But mostly he stayed close, his presence steady and silent, a quiet anchor that allowed her the space to be fully immersed. The healing woman paused at the crest of a small hill. A nuthatch clung to the side of a nearby tree, creeping upward in short bursts. She raised her camera carefully and captured it just as its tiny head turned in profile. A moment later, a pair of chickadees zipped through the branches above, their wings stirring the leaves in quick flutters. Below, among the fallen logs, a gray squirrel paused mid-scamper and sat upright, nibbling at a piece of bark. She crouched, zoomed in, and caught the tension in its tiny fingers, the curve of its ear. Then, to her surprise, a chipmunk joined the scene, hopping onto a low stump and sniffing at a patch of lichen before darting away. The forest felt alive, and she was moving through it not as a visitor, but as someone being let in, quietly accepted by the rhythm of its creatures. Her son stood a few feet away, capturing the soft silhouette of the trees above. Their eyes met briefly. No words were needed. He saw what she saw. They spent over an hour in the hills, following trails that twisted gently between hemlock and birch, stopping every few minutes to observe or photograph something small. A beetle crawling across a sunlit rock, a feather lodged in the crook of a branch, the way the light dappled across tree bark. Eventually, they descended toward the marsh, where the light grew brighter and the air thickened slightly with the scent of water and fresh algae. The buzzing of insects increased, and the wooden boardwalk creaked softly beneath their steps. The healing woman moved slowly now, her camera in hand, eyes scanning the water for lilies. When she found them blooming in soft pinks and pale yellows, she knelt at the edge of the boardwalk and leaned forward, angling her lens low. A bullfrog, green and golden, blinked at her lazily from a lily pad just feet away. She waited, let the moment settle, and captured the image just as the frog raised its chin. Then near the reeds she saw them. A cluster of water snakes, long and slender, gliding slowly in the warm shallows. Most would have stepped back. She stepped closer, crouched low, and adjusted her camera settings. They moved with grace, their bodies trailing ribbons in the water, never in a rush, never disturbed by her presence. One curled onto a partially submerged stone, resting its head in the sun. She took several photos, each one quieter than the last, each one more about reverence than documentation. Her son stood behind her, watching with curiosity, though he did not approach. When she finally stood again, he handed her her thermos. "Peaceful," he said simply. She nodded. "Very." They stayed there for a while longer, sipping tea and watching the snakes weave between the lilies, frogs croaking quietly around them. It wasn't just about seeing today. It was about being allowed to witness, about slowing down long enough to match the pace of the wild things. As they walked the final stretch of the trail, the sun lowering behind the tree line, she felt her body pleasantly worn and her mind cleared of its usual noise. Her son walked beside her, not saying much, but occasionally glancing down at his camera with satisfaction. Back at the car, they packed their gear and sat in the quiet before starting the engine. "Want to go through our photos tonight?" she asked. He nodded. "Let's pick the best one." She smiled. "We'll print it." And as they drove away, the healing woman glanced once more into the trees, the leaves rustling gently in the wind behind them, and felt herself held by the stillness they were leaving. Her lens had captured so much, but it was the stillness that stayed with her most of all.